Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is our second Florida virtual tug. We're hoping just to provide monthly user groups going forward. So we're super glad you're here. Keep the chat. I see the chat like going crazy over there. So keep that going. We want to connect with everybody as much as we can in the virtual setting. So our leadership team, we have 6 people currently. Most of us are on the call: Aaron, Andrew, Erica, Jeff, myself, and then Yamil. So feel free to reach out to anybody, contact us. We don't have our email on here, but you can contact the whole group at orlandotug@gmail.com. And what we're doing is we are working to have monthly events. We've had 2 virtual ones. This is our second. Thanks for putting that in the chat. And then in March, we will have an in-person event in Orlando, and then we'll do go back to the virtual setting. And so we're just looking at having monthly speakers, providing networking, hopefully give back to the community, whether that's the Tableau community or nonprofits in the area. Give you all a chance, a place to share your content, what you're designing, what you're doing in Tableau, and also bring great speakers such as Pablo to our local or state groups. And then, of course, sharing job opportunities and different things that might be interesting in the area or online as well. So looking forward next month, in March, we're asking you to share some of your St. Patty's Day with us. I think we're still finalizing a lot of the details, and we're still working on the event page, but we'll get that out to you all. And we're having Chris Tauber. He's shared a couple times with us before. He's a phenomenal speaker. I don't know if any of the others on the call want to speak on this. Yeah.
Yes. So if you please follow Chris. Chris have the only magazine related to data biz. He published this. He's a magazine publisher too. That's one of his backgrounds, and he have Data for Execs. That is his company, but also the magazine. And he's always posting things like what you're seeing on the screen on his LinkedIn page, and chatting with everyone. He have great content. He's going to be with us next month in March. Yeah.
Yep. And he has worked, I don't have his resume up in front of me. I don't know if he's on the call, but he has worked for a lot of great corporations and companies in the area, in the country. My favorite that he's worked for is Papa John's, but he's done things with SeaWorld and I think Universal and
Universal too. Yes. So he's here locally. That's just one of our local data stars here in Orlando, and he lives in Longwood. And he's gonna be with us. Great speaker. Yeah.
So you all are welcome to join us, and we'll get those event details out to you as soon as we can. And then in April, we're going to be back virtually. We have Kevin sharing Tableau tips and ones you never saw coming. I don't really know what that teaser is about, but I don't know if anybody else wants to speak to that. Otherwise, join us in April. That'll be a really good one as well. So.
I know he's going to do some stuff with transparent sheets, and he's just going to kind of go crazy with a lot of different tips like they do so well. So definitely something to look forward to.
Yeah, and they do the Tableau Twins blog, which has a ton of phenomenal content. So that'll be a really powerful session.
Yes, I was going to say that, if you heard about the twin brothers that are Zen masters, these are the guys. This is one of them. I'm telling you, this is going to be incredible. And he's going to give us that time to do a privilege to have him in April. Don't miss that one.
Awesome. Oops. So here's our ways to connect. We have a LinkedIn group. It's under Orlando Tableau User Group right now, but feel free to join us. Our email, Twitter, I think we've been dropping that in the chat as well. And then our event pages where you can find out what's coming up, register, etc. All of this, any of these places would have the same information, but just trying to be where you all want to connect with us as well. I'm going to kind of go quickly through these. We have, whoops, move my laptop. Feel free to reach out and share job postings or let us know if you guys are looking for talent in the area or remote. We have 3 currently in this deck. The first one is the data analyst position. We will send this out and I will let you guys review it. There's a Tableau developer for data meaning. And then lastly, for Rollins, there's a data coordinator position. So
Rollins College here in Orlando, Rollins College.
right. Yep.
Yeah.
So up here we have it linked. So when we send this out, you can click into it. I don't know if there's anybody on the call that wants to say in the chat or unmute and say, let me know if you have any questions, anything like that, or in the group.
Yeah. If
Yeah,
you
hi, sorry.
go ahead.
Sorry to bother you. This is Raj. Finally, I was able to join it because I was just trying to use your web browser, but in reality, I ended up downloading the software. So now I am able to join it anyway. But my cameras will be off because my laptop is, I'm working from a home. So my laptop is basically
It's not set up.
on the docking station.
Okay, no worries.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. If you have any jobs that you want us to show up or display or, you know, let the community know for next month, just let us know. Send us the job, send us what you got, and we can put it here on the screen. Yeah, for any month, actually.
Alrighty, Emil, you wanna, I'm gonna pass it over to you guys to do the big.
Absolutely,
this.
absolutely. So super excited about this. You know, I have my good friend Pablo Gomez. I mean, I every time that I'm, you know, I do something with Pablo, I've been, you know, collaborating with him in the ComuniDatos, which is the largest Tableau user group in the world, because it's a Tableau user group that become, you know, it's all for Latin America. And I always have fun. I mean, he's always having this, he brings in this kind of like a graphic designer into Tableau, right? And I wanted to say, you know, that's super important because Pablo can bring in other things that maybe other people don't have, because he have that graphic designer also background on it. And just wanted to say he's also a Tableau Public Ambassador. He also is a leader of the London Tableau User Group, ComuniDatos User Group. He's an independent consultant, worked with many different companies. He's now located in London. So he's talking with us live from London. And, you know, he's always been fascinated with graphic design, Tableau, data. And I am sure this is going to be a great session today. Can't wait to listen to what he wanted to say to us. And very important, I highly encourage you, go to his profile on Tableau Public. And the background of Pablo, all of those are some of the visualizations that he did before there's in his profile. So I'm telling you, it's great stuff. I mean, I always heard somebody told me, like, if you want to learn from the best, hey, this is the best way you can improve your skills. And here we have one of the best. And we're so lucky to have him here in the Tableau User Group for Florida. And Pablo, take it, and thank you for being here with us today. And reach out to him.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm kind of flashing so many kind words, honestly. Thank you so much. It's a privilege to be here. And when you contact me and say, would you be interested in speaking? I say, absolutely. Great. I love the idea. Why not? I mean, we're going to talk about Tableau. We're going to talk about graphic design. We're going to talk about visualizations. And I say, absolutely. What's not to like? Let's do it. So thank you so much, Orlando, Florida. I was mentioning some time ago, and haven't been to Florida in a very long time. I mean, it's a place that I like a lot. Been there a few times, but it's been quite a few, more than a couple of decades actually, since my last time over there. I'm pretty sure it has changed a little bit, but it's always a place that I like, and I have some really good memories out of it. So what we're going to be talking today, and I highly encourage you all, if possible, to, as I'm going through the presentation, to write your questions probably in the chat, so we can, after the presentation, we can all have a go at the questions and everything that you have. But basically, I'm going to talk about two of my passions. One of them, it's Tableau and data visualization, and the other one is graphic design. So I was explaining earlier on today, I'm not a graphic designer. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. But then I started developing, I started learning about graphic design and all the stuff. And And one of the things that I loved was to start combining both graphic design and Tableau. So today we're going to be talking about how I built or how I created some of my infographics, the ones that you can find on Tableau Public. And this is me. I'm a senior data visualization designer, Tableau Public Ambassador, and co-leaders of both London Tableau User Group and ComuniDatos. And you can find me almost everywhere. You can find me on Twitter, on YouTube, website, Discord. I mean, everything. Everywhere you can find me over there. And then please do reach out, connect, and let's stay in touch. So let's get to it. Oops, wrong side of the screen. There we go. We're going to touch on 8-9 points today, and the first one is we're going to talk about infographics. So what are infographics? We can say that infographics are graphic visual representations or visualizations of data and of knowledge intended to present information in a clearly and clearly way. Now, some of the presentations, and this has been a conversation that I have had many times. So what's the difference between an infographic in many ways and a dashboard? Infographics allows you to actually add a little bit more of text, context. It allows you to explore a little bit more further than the simple dashboards that we usually use and the dashboards that we usually get. So it allows you to go a little bit further on your creation. So how do I build an infographic? And this is my method, and there are probably many other ways to do it, but I'm going to talk through what I usually do. First, you have to select a theme, an idea, and collect the data. So that's the hard part and the boring part, perhaps. You can talk about statistics. You may like sports, politics, music, technology, all sorts of different things. Then you have to start looking for a different style, right? It's different kind of you have to give it a tone to your presentations. You start looking for a color palette, specific typography, visual elements that you're going to be using on your graphs, on your visualizations. And then you start working on different layout, the first mockups, what's going to look like, what we're going to include, black and white mockup. And then you go on to colors and you start implementing those colors, you start implementing those graphs and see if they fit in the work okay on your presentation, on your visualization. And then we go on the last part, which is basically put everything that you already collected into action. And that's when you start building your infographic or your visualization. And to do that, you start putting in place every single one of the details and elements that you already found, that you already selected. So let's get started, right? I usually start brainstorming and then brainstorm with other people or other colleagues or people who actually know about data visualization and people who don't know anything about database. Because the idea is at the end of the day, we always have to understand who's actually going to be consuming your visualizations, who's going to be looking at them, right? So I talk to different people and I say, look, do you understand this graph? If I do this or if I do that, would you understand what I'm trying to say? And you start getting some feedback and some ideas whether what you're going to do works or not. And then I start building some of the first mockups, the first ideas. We start putting in place some of those first ideas, right? So we have the theme, we have some of the elements. Let's say we collected the data, we have a massive spot-on, spectacular data set without a flaw. And we're going to start building the first sketch, right? Now, usually what I will do is not here in the presentation, but I usually will grab a normal A4 size piece of paper, a pencil, basically, and start sketching. I say, okay, here goes the header. I'm going to add this information here. I'm going to add a graph here. And I'm going to start building the placeholders or where everything, the blocks or where everything is going to go. This is just a mock-up. It's just a first idea. You will see later on how things develop and how things change along the way while you're building it. But it starts giving you a direction of where you're going at least. So my first mockup will be on a piece of paper. Then I go on to digital and I go on to adding those elements in black and white before adding any simple color. And based on the presentation and based on what we're going to be doing, I introduce the colors later on. And as you can see on the second mockup, there are a little bit more elements to it. I mean, I start placing them in the location, in the place that I actually want them to go. Does the color palette actually work okay? Is it good? I mean, we're looking at human trafficking here, so I didn't want to have any weird or fluid colors or something like that. It has to be subtle. It has to be very simple. White spaces, those white spaces are super important. It has to allow the flow of the flow of the people who are actually reading it. They need to understand what they're looking at. And if we packed up everything into one single canvas, it's not going to work. So we need some spaces. We need that natural flow to go ahead on your infographics. And then obviously we have the final product. So as you can see, you have 3 stages here of one visualization, of one simple infographic. And by the way, you can find this infographic on my Tableau Public profile. You can download it and you can start breaking it apart and see how I did each one of those elements, how I built each one of those parts. And I totally encourage you, go and find it, download it onto your Tableau desktop and start breaking it apart. That's the best way to actually learn how to do these kind of things. So as you can see, 3 different ideas, 3 different parts of the process, and imagine, see how each one of those elements that we originally created or built ended up in the visualization. Some of them, like this, like for example, these 2, the couple here, the man and woman, they were not a part of this, right? But we found that it was very easy as a legend for this bar chart, right? To say, okay, we're going to represent the man with this color and the woman with this color, the women with this color. And basically, instead of adding an extra legend, we use that image as a legend, basically. So that's one of the ideas. We move then again to one of my favorite, not this one, but the next we're going to move on to another of my favorite visualizations. This is something that I found this data set where I found really, really interesting in 2018. And it was actually talking about people walking while using their mobile phones. So basically, there were just, how many of us actually walk on streets with our mobile phones, answering a text message or a WhatsApp, or actually watching something on TV. And basically it was actually telling us how many accidents people have in UK while when they were looking at the mobiles while walking, sorry. And that's the final visualization. As you can see, different mockups, different ideas, and how I ended up building in 3 very specific categories or areas, by location, by gender, and by age. We're telling a story of how many accidents have been, people have had, mainly on that situation. And this one is probably one of my favorite visualizations. And there's a funny story about this. This is a Makeover Monday data set. I think it was in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was, yes, 2018. For those who don't know, Makeover Monday is a project that used to run on a weekly basis. We ran for about 5 years, and every Sunday or every Monday they will release a data set, and people around the world will actually visualize that data set in a completely different way. So it was fantastic. It was a great exercise, and I have learned a lot from participating on that project. And basically, what you had was the opportunity to actually visualize data sets in everyone in a completely different way. So this one, the funny thing about this one is when I got onto this data set, I created the visualization, but I haven't seen a single Game of Thrones episode in my life. So I have a very good friend of mine who has was a crazy fan of Game of Thrones, basically. And I said, look, I need a half an hour crash course on Game of Thrones. Tell me what we're looking at here. So we both look at the data set, and then we build I actually built the infographic. So as you can see, you have two different layouts of what the infographic was going to look like, a third one and a fourth one. And when I look at the fourth one, when I saw this one, I said, yes, this is the one that I'm going to look, what we're going to build. And the final infographic that we built is in here. And the funny thing is the whole data set was mainly about all the killings in the eight seasons series of Game of Thrones. But I found out that I realized basically that the top 3 killers were women, right? And I just simply focus on those 3 women. And then again, you can download this one from my Tableau Public profile if you want to. And we're going to go into more detail how this one was built. But that's another thing that I would like to stress and focus on this presentation. You always have to deliver a message on your visualizations. Not because you have a massive data set, you have to put everything into one visualization, into one dashboard. Just focus on the message that you want to bring across. And in this case, for me, were these 3 ladies, and I focus on that, and I disregard the rest of the data set. And that's a perfectly valid situation. You don't have to put everything into one single dashboard or viz. You can focus on something specific, and that will be absolutely fine as well. Number 4, so we have the color palette, we have the mockups already, we have the typography, the graphic elements that we're going to be using. So now the fun part, right? Now we start building everything in Tableau. Now is the moment that we say, okay, let's see if everything that I have already collected actually works. So we start, as I mentioned before, we start with the color palettes. This is July 2019, basically. Game of Thrones visualization, and we build this map, and instead of using the normal image of photos of the 3 ladies, I created some sort of a layout or contour of their faces, and built also the arm of codes as well, coat of arms, everything in there. We built the map with all the killings and each one of the killings around the different parts of the map and where they have occurred. This is the other one, the human trafficking. This is part of the Vis for Social Good project. Then again, color palette, very sensitive topic, very, very, very important topic. I didn't want to show real faces of real people, so we created this color palette, and we represented men, women, and the different people with this sort of kind of a graphic elements of each one of them. Basically, mainly out of respect for everything that's happening out there and still happening. It's a very sensitive topic. Also, as you can see, most of my visualizations, I mean, we all go through a phase or a point where we love to do some sort of a weird, crazy graphs. And we all, at some point, we're going to do a Sankey chart, and we're all going to do at some point something weird and crazy. And we're going to follow some of the those tutorials online, and you end up saying, okay, I did it. Finally, I did it. But if you look at my visualization, most of my visits are very simple: bar charts, line charts, tree maps. And that's the best way to actually show the information. And it's a simple way to actually convey your message across. My son and I were very big football fans, and we are big Manchester City fans here in UK. And because we're Argentinians, we love Sergio Agüero. We love him becoming the top Manchester City scorer ever. And my son and I, we set into a challenge. He was going to get all the data. So he started doing the research and he got the data and how many games he scored, all the goals, when he scored the goals and all the stuff. And I set myself to actually build the visualization of the infographic. And to do that, what we did is we got the color palettes and very simple typography, and we started building it. We started putting everything together. We moved the background of Sergio in the ground, in the football ground. We started building it, adding elements, everything that you can add that will help you visualize the information much better and simple. This one, we truly believe, my wife and I, we truly believe that teaching children to code at a very early age helps them very much. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I was listening to an interview of a boy here in UK, in London, that sold they made $400,000 selling NFTs on OpenSea. And basically what he did is he created a script, he coded everything on Java or Python, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Python, if I'm not mistaken. And then he uploaded all the NFTs and sold them all basically in about 9 hours or so, something like that. And the funny thing is that he's only 12 years old and he started coding or learning coding when he was 5. So it's a great way for them to actually learn, be creative and all that. So my son, who's 12 years old, he actually has his own Tableau Public profile as well. Sometimes we do visualizations when he's in the mood as well. So we totally encourage people to do it. This one, it's another Makeover Monday data set. I wanted to actually show all the fatal attacks, bear attacks in North America, Canada and the US. But I didn't want to show the normal pictures of the bears. So what I did is we created this polygon bears, as I call them. We call them the polygon bears. And I used that one as part of the visualization. And then we put everything together, like the claws and very simple line charts and bar charts or rounded bar charts, basically elements. And we're going to go into detail on how to work with all this in a few minutes, very soon. Oops, there we go. Now, thumbs up if you like Mondays or not. Can you send me a thumbs up or not if you like Mondays, or people like Mondays? There's a very famous song called Tell Me Why I Don't Like Mondays. And many people don't like Mondays. My son certainly is one of those. He doesn't like Mondays. But when we got across this Makeover Monday data set in November 2017, then again, a focus it was showing all the bank holidays across the world, and how many countries and how many bank holidays each country had across the world. And one of the things that I found is that most of the countries, most of the bank holidays on many countries, and 30% of the bank holidays around the world were on Mondays. So we're talking about a third of the bank holidays in the world are on Mondays. So suddenly, somehow, when you look at it, Mondays look a little bit better. So this is the visualization. We created this radio chart, and every time you hover over each one of those lines or bars, it will show you each country, and it will show you the information for those countries. And then again, we wanted to show the same information, but in this case for the regions or the different continents as well. And we had that information as well as part of the different continents. Now, there are two ways, and you've been working probably with Tableau for quite some time, or probably you're just starting with Tableau. When we build a dashboard, there are two main ways to actually build a dashboard. One of them is tile, using containers and tile elements. And the other one is floating. Now, many people are scared of floating, and many people don't like floating elements. when you look at my visualizations, and if you download them, you will find that 95% of them are floating. Everything is floating around, everything is moving around, and you can precisely place them exactly where you want them. Now, with floating elements, it became a challenge because that challenge was to actually say, okay, if I put an element here, I might need to add another element on top of that. And that's how that challenge brought us to two things that we're going to discuss in the next few minutes. And one of them is basically transparency on graphs, and the other one is layers. So floating elements are super important, right? So this whole visualization of Sergio Agüero is everything is floating except for the background, right? Everything else is floating, right? There's no tailed elements in that visualization. Now, transparency, good or bad? And I remember having this conversation with Francois some time ago when they were just about to release the transparency on graphs. And he said, well, the problem will be if people start creating weird or bad visualizations, right? On like adding a beach image behind a graph or something like that. So I thought of it in a complete different way. And I'm going to explain why, because I always had the challenge when I built this particular visualization, Sergio Agüero. The main challenge that I had was that I actually wanted this leg, his right leg, to go over the dashboard, the graph, sorry. But if I were to do that, the problem was that if I added the graph on top of the image, I will cut off his leg. And if I added the image on top of the graph, I will be losing all the interactivity of this top part, right, of the graph. So people who will be hovering over here, for example, on these bar charts, it wouldn't work. So I had to, and this is 2017. Tableau in 2017 was different than it is now. And so I had to come up with an idea, right? I started by placing the image of Sergio Agüero in the background. I added the graph on top of it, and that was the problem, as you can see. Yep. So the graph, there was no transparency back then, so the graph was cutting off Sergio Agüero's leg. So I said, okay, I have to be creative here. So what I did is I took Sergio Agüero's photo onto Photoshop. I cut his leg off, and I actually added his leg as a third layer. So we have 3 layers there to create that simple, and I'm going to show it again, that simple image. So basically, the first layer will be Sergio Agüero's photo. Second layer on top of that is the graph. Third layer on top of the graph is Sergio's leg. Now, today and nowadays with 2021.4, it's very simple. You just say, you know what, just remove the background of my graph. Simple, very easy, no problem at all, right? But back in the day, we had to be very creative to do all that. And so, yes, Tableau, thank you so much for transparencies. That and copy and paste on dashboards, probably one of the 2 main features that I love the most about it. And I was just talking about layers. So layers is something that you need to consider every time you're working with floating elements. And the reason for that is that layers means nothing more, nothing less than that. I mean, elements on top of each other, one element on top of the other. So if you put one element on top of the other, that element in the background is going to be visible for sure, but you may lose the interactivity. So you have to analyze and you have to work really well what's going to go on top of what to be able to actually do have the interactivity on your visualizations, on hover over or anything else that you want. So for that, on this one, we had 4 layers. As you can see, a background image, the interactivity of the locations, the text, and the line charts, as you can see. All of them working together build the simple image or the simple visualization that you have seen that you can find on that graph. And with that, it's a simple way of actually representing or showing how floating elements, right, with the right location, in the right location, and with layers in the right order, work super, super, super well, right? Now, we have seen all this, right? And you might probably say, okay, where do I get that information? What can I get all those elements? Where can I get those resources? And basically, I'm going to show you next a few resources that you can find and a few places where you can find resources. And one of those places where you can find resources are some of them, all of them are good. Some of them are free and some of them are a little bit expensive or not so expensive, right? So the top one, the most important and top of them all is Adobe, all the Adobe suite. And basically we're talking about Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop. Those two are the top ones that you can find. A little bit expensive sometimes and probably not worth the justification of paying for the license. But if you don't want to use that one, I would strongly suggest go for canva.com. They're amazing. You can remove backgrounds. You can change colors of your elements. You can create icons. You can do so many things. The background images that you have seen on my presentation just a couple of minutes ago, everything else can be done here on Canva and is much, much cheaper than Adobe. FreePic, another one, plenty of elements you can use from there. There's actually a free version and a paid version. The paid version is not that expensive, but you can get lots of stuff from there as well. Then we have Infographic. Basically, there are about 3,500 plus infographic templates that you can use, all sorts of different things. And you may probably not use them like that, but it gives you a good idea of where to look at and how to visualize your data. The Noun project, again, lots of icons or photos that you might need if you want to. And last but not least, Unsplash. Unsplash is really, really good. All images that you can use on your visualizations, and they're also free to use as well, unless as long as you give credit or where they're coming from or the author as well. And obviously, once you build all that, so you say, okay, I have the elements, I created my layouts, I have the fantastic color palette and all the graphic elements, I build this beautiful, gorgeous visualization, I build this infographic that is fantastic, and I love it, whether you like it or not, whether people believe or not, it's beautiful, it's your visualization. So the best thing you can do is put it out there, share it with the rest of the world. And no place better than that than Tableau Public. I'm a Tableau Public ambassador myself. And I keep saying to everyone, there's no better place to find inspiration than Tableau Public. There's no better place to actually download workbooks or visualizations from other people than Tableau Public. And you can learn so much from there. And there's a fantastic place where you can find different visualizations and people who are doing amazing things over there. So you build your visualization, you build your infographic, share it. Here's the Tour of France infographic that I built. Sergio Aguero that we already discussed and mentioned. The San Antonio Spurs. Any basketball fans here? Pretty sure you have. The Orlando Magic are over there and the Miami Heat as well. But basically, this was what this one was about, San Antonio Spurs. And you upload it onto Tableau Public. Game of Thrones visualization, petrol versus diesel. This was fantastic. I love this one because I've always, as a mechanical engineer, there has always been this argument about what's better, diesel or petrol, or why you one or the other. Energy sensors, I love this one. So this data set was all about all the squirrels, 2,900 and something, almost 3,000 squirrels that were spotted in Central Park in New York, and where they were spotted and what they were doing while basically where they were spotted. So basically that's another one of the ones that I really, really like. Uploaded onto Tableau Public. This one, it's a very customized visualization that I created based on a data set by La Nación in Argentina. La Nación is probably one of the biggest newspapers in Argentina, and they had this data set. I have a few good friends over there, and I asked them permission if I could use their data set to actually build this visualization. The map that you see of Buenos Aires in this piece, it's actually built by me, drawn by me. It's not a map that I found anywhere. I actually draw it myself with Adobe Illustrator, and I put on top of that the plot of every single tree that they found in Buenos Aires, based on that map that I built. Digital gender gap, you wouldn't believe still nowadays the big gap that there is between men and women on the use of mobile phones or connectivity, and it's still over there. So this is another one that I built over time. And last but not least, like I always say, do it in public, upload it, upload everything into Tableau Public. There's no better way to actually show what you can do. And to be honest, I'm an independent consultant. I usually I have different clients, and many people have asked me over the years, can you show me anything you have done before? And one of the things that I love the most about Tableau Public is that I can redirect them to my Tableau Public profile. In fact, when I send my CV somewhere, when I send my CV to a client or a potential to fulfill a potential position, my CV, my resume has my Tableau Public link over there. So people, recruiters or agencies or anyone who actually receives my resume, they can go to my Tableau Public profile and they can actually see all those visualizations by themselves. And what we're going to do now is we're going to build in a virtual way a visualization that I created not long ago. So I found this data set and I saw a person who actually created this visualization in Adobe Illustrator. She was fantastic the way she actually explained how she created the visualization, the infographic, and I said, okay, I'm going to set myself a challenge. I'm not going to do it in Illustrator. I'm going to do it in Tableau. So I set myself the challenge to reproduce her infographic in Tableau. So what we have here is basically a very simple line chart, another bar chart, which is actually a stack bar chart, and you will see later on why it's like that. Another bar chart to represent the different rankings and positions. A slope chart, a very simple line of slope chart, if you want to call it. Another bar chart representing the continental scores, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to put everything together in a minute to build the visualization. And last but not least, another bar chart to represent the ranking by GDP per capita. Right now, we have all those elements. Let's set to build the World Happiness Report infographic. We start with a very simple background, and that background is about 1,500 by 2,775 pixels. It's a very long and wide infographic, as you can see. We start by building the first. The first layer will be the background, as you can see. On top of that, second layer, or first layer in this case, we're representing each country. So each one of those lines is a country in our visualization. On top of that, we add the stack bar. The stack bar is the score of each country, the score of happiness of each country, but broke down by different ways of metrics, different ways of getting that score. Then we have the ranking of each country, the name of each country and the ranking and where they sit on that ranking. And then we have a connection, the slope chart that will connect the countries with the continents. So basically, each country it's part of a continent, and each continent will also have a happiness score in it. We add, last but not least, we add the country ranking by GDP. And then obviously we start adding reference to it. So we add different information. So what's the World Happiness Report about? A little bit of information about GDP per capita, because people need to understand sometimes what we're looking at, what we're talking about, credits, where the information is coming from. And last but not least, a powerful title. Remember, it's super important that people, every time that they're going to look at your visualizations or your dashboards or your infographics, the first thing they see is the header, is the title. And the title is what's going to actually say within those 3 or 4 or 5 seconds, first 5 seconds, it's going to say, okay, yes, I want to read a little bit more about this. I want to learn more about this infographic or this visualization. So super important, always try to get a very catchy, very, very, very catchy title. And of course, that's how you build it. And this is the final visualization. This is the final infographic. You can find it on my Tableau Public profile. And as you can see, it's just right here. It's in there. That's the one. And you can build. It's open to download as well. If you want to download it and break it apart, then again you can do that. And as you can see, as you hover over each one of these, it will highlight and it will tell you what's the metric. And also, if you look at each one of the countries, it's actually showing you which continent it belongs to, and so on and so on. So, and the inspiration is about Diana Stefania Rubio. She's the lady who actually built the infographic in the first place in Adobe Illustrator. So I consider that it was fair to say her name, to mention her name as an inspiration, because she actually inspired me to actually be able and challenged me to actually build this infographic on Tableau. Now, we have done, we have built, we have created, we have designed, we have done all that. We have uploaded it onto Tableau Public, and everything that goes into public, it's actually public. So I strongly suggest, I cannot strongly suggest more and more to actually do it every time that you can. A few takeaways of this presentation: join the project, right? So these are projects outside work, projects that you will be able to join outside, completely outside your day-to-day work. Makeover Monday, which sadly is finished now, but there are 5 years worth of data sets. So imagine 5 years times 52 weeks a year. It's a ton of data sets you can find in there. Sport via Sunday, a story with data challenge as well, storytelling with data challenge, Visual Social Good. These are some of the projects. There are quite a few out there. There's a dedicated web page, Tableau page, where you have all those projects as well. So go ahead and check them out. Create your Tableau Public profile, download visualizations, and get inspired. Nothing better, nothing more interesting than that. And last but not least, never stop visualizing, never stop visiting. Keep on doing it. You might say, I'm just starting, my visualizations are not that good. It doesn't matter. We all were there at some point. We all started at some point. In fact, when you go to my Tableau Public profile, the first 5 visualizations, and I'm going to show you fairly quickly, my first 5 visualizations are still there. You can see them, you can find them. And you will say, they are horrible and I don't like them, but they're there. And the truth is, these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these are the first 5 visualizations that I uploaded. And they're horrible. I never even bothered to change the colors, the original colors that came with the Tableau, the default colors. But I left them there because they all show your progression. They all show how you have learned, how you have improved over the years. So don't be afraid. Publish. Don't be afraid about. Don't feel bad about what others are doing. Just go out there, do your best, and keep on visiting. And last but not least, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you at the Florida Tableau User Group. It's been a privilege. Questions? I hope so. I really like questions. So it would be really, really good if we have a few questions.
I mean, I don't know you guys, but I am impressed. I mean, I am like super pumped. Maybe like Aaron always told me we're data nerds. And I mean, Paulo, I don't know. I'm just, I have to tell you, I mean, we were in, you know, we don't used to do virtual. We used to do in person. I'm pretty sure we all would be like doing like this right now, because that's what you deserve.
Thank you.
It's just amazing. I know Katie just, she feels the same way.
It was
It's
fabulous. Yeah, I feel like you
Yeah.
would have had jaws dropped if we all were required to share video.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
This is
Thank you so
great
much.
stuff. It just looks amazing. I mean, and it's so cool to see, you know, I think that you make a big point, right? Most of the time we were looking at these visualizations from many great developers or individuals that are doing this visualization, but we're always wondering, how do you build something like this, right? And seeing those ledgers and seeing what does it take, it's just great. It's amazing.
Thanks.
So I think we have a tons of questions, Katie. That
Okay.
right? Yeah.
Shoot. Fire
We
them
have
up.
tons, yes.
Good.
And we, or if Jeff, if you see any questions you want to ask Jeff, just
I
ask
think,
him.
I guess I'll chime in. There were
Yeah.
a lot of questions about the resources you used before you got to that resource slide.
Great,
But
great.
afterwards, someone asked the question of, well, if you're kind of starting and you don't have a graphic design background, how do you learn how to start using those resources?
That's great. That's a fantastic question. Again, I'm not a graphic designer. I'm a mechanical engineer. I ended up learning along the way, and it took me a long time to actually learn, not only how to use a tool, anyone can learn how to use a tool, but learning the basic of graphic design, that's a different story. So I have a ton of books that I have, you cannot see here, but they're over there, basically, here in my house. I suggest you, irrespective of the tool you're going to be using, if you want to learn about graphic design, learn graphic design. I mean, read books about the theory of color, read books about typography, and not every typography is good for different visualizations of what we design. So learn about spaces, learn about all that kind of interaction, about elements and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's about learning in your own way, in your own time. In terms of a specific tool or specific resources, from the ones that I show you, the top and the king and the queen and king of the graphic design are the Adobe products. But to do that, you have to learn how to use those tools, right? But not only learn how to use those tools, you have to know graphic design, right? So because they're blank canvas, basically. You can do anything you want, but you have to learn. First, you need to know what you're going to do, and second, you need to know how you're going to do it. Whereas in Canvas, which was the second Canva, which was the second option, canva.com, it's a very simple web tool that you can use. You can register for free and you can use it for free unless you want to pay for it. But they have tons of designs. They have so many designs. So all you have to do is start changing either colors or text or even fonts or even changing the image in the background, that kind of stuff. So they have way too many pre-built-in designs that you can use, and those are the best. So if you know nothing, if you don't know anything about graphic design, I totally go with Canva first, get the grip of it, start learning, start developing. And also once you learn all that, then you move to the big leagues or the other big boys out there.
Awesome.
Awesome.
One of the questions, Go ahead,
Yeah,
Erica.
that's what I was going to say. Just, yeah, that was great. Thanks.
Keep going.
No problem.
One of the questions was just how much time does it take to start to finish to create one of these?
Like everything in life, same with this one. When I don't know if you can say it because of the Rubik's Cube. I mean, the first time that I learned how to do to solve the Rubik's Cube, it took me about 2.5 hours to actually do it. And then I practiced and I did it in less time, and now I can do it in less than 3 minutes. And yet still it's not as fast as many people. Many people will do it quickly. Same thing with visualizations and graphic design. It can take a lot of time at the beginning, and then once you get the grip, once you learn how to use the tools, once you find your way, your methodology of working, for example, because when you're working with floating elements, you have to have the precise coordinate of the elements or where they're going to sit along your canvas, along your visualization. So that takes a lot of time, honestly. That takes quite a lot of time to actually get the grip of all that. But the more you practice, the more you do it, the easier it gets. The faster and the easier for you to actually visualize that in your head and then put all that in practice. The question that I usually get is the Game of Thrones visualization, which is one of my favorites, how long it took me to do it. From the moment I started to the moment I actually finish it, with breaks in the middle, of course, I was working, I have a family, dinner, sleeping, and all the stuff. Probably it took me, if I count all the hours, it took me about 16 to 20 hours work to actually build all that from scratch, from the idea to the moment I actually hit the button and it went on to Tableau Public. So it's very relative, and if you are very meticulous like me or very into detail, you will always find something that is not ready to be published. So at some point you have to say, okay, I compromise, I have to publish it, otherwise I'm going to end up continue working with this for a long time. But it's very, very, very particular each time or each situation, honestly.
Makes sense.
Any other questions? More questions?
Yeah.
There was one about what sites or where do you go to find color palettes? I don't know if you addressed that when you had your different.
Oh, no, I didn't.
resources.
No,
Okay.
that's true. I didn't. I do have a book which is called The Theory of Color Design, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it right here with me. It's in my bookshelf over there. See if you can find it. That book is fantastic. So they show everything about marketing, how over the years, how they have used different colors in different scenarios, and they also bring different color palettes that work really well all together. But I usually find inspiration on anything, from a sofa, from when you're walking on the streets and it's autumn and you see the leaves red, yellow, and all the stuff. And I do have an application on my phone which is called Capture. It's part of Adobe, but it's free, so you can actually use it without a problem. Capture. And what it does is you can take a picture of something that attracts your attention, and it will identify the different colors on that picture. So it gives you an automatic color palette, and it gives you the hexagonal color codes as well. And you can move around the different areas where you want the colors to be part of and all the stuff. And also you can use because I'm into the Adobe elements and all the stuff, the Adobe suite, the Adobe color wheel as well. That's super interesting, super good. You can find a lot on there. But inspiration, day-to-day life, honestly, anywhere, anything you see, there's color out there. So yes.
Can you say again the name of the book that you mentioned?
Let me see if I can find it. It's while I'm answering another question. It's the theory of color, if I'm not mistaken.
Hey, Eric, is there any other question over there that you saw? There were many. It's just I think we have to go up. Katie, you have many questions, right?
Yeah, I
You're-
compiled them. There's one asking if you use Tableau extensions at all. I don't know if
No.
you want to get into that. No, okay,
No.
easier.
No, but not for any wrong or particular reason. It's just that probably I'm more old school kind of a person. So I learned to use Tableau. I started using Tableau in 2013
Wow.
back in the days. Yeah, so it's many years ago. And Tableau back in those days is not what it is now. So I kind of learned the old-fashioned way how to use Tableau. And because I learned there were no extensions back then, there were no transparency, Tableau was an amazing tool, even though with the different limitations and things that it couldn't do, it was a fantastic tool. But I didn't start with Tableau nowadays, so I started in the old days. So I kind of never use extensions for the simple reason that I learned how to do everything the old way of the old school, basically. But nothing wrong with extension. I think they're super powerful if you can use them without a problem.
Let me ask you a question, Pablo. There was a question, and I had the same question from Brittany.
Yeah.
She's saying, what tools are you using to create or tweak images? Maybe it's Adobe, but do you remember when you put the burr and then you were able to make the burr like polygon and like it was kind of like the burr was kind of like white, or some of the image became white, and then you had that drawing of that specific image. Yeah.
Yes, so I'll show you that again. So what I use for that is Illustrator. Definitely.
Illustrator,
So,
okay.
Yes, Illustrator, and that's somewhere over here. There we go. This is the one. And yeah, so Illustrator is the one that I use. So what you do is first you create, as you can see, you create the contour of the bear.
Exactly, that's what I was talking
And
about.
then you build, you just cross the bear with different lines, and that creates the polygon. It's a very simple technique, honestly. All you have to do is create the contour first, and then you see these are very simple lines that are coming across the bear or the image, and then you just get the polygon at the end of the day. And once you do that, you just change the colors, and it's a very simple technique.
Very cool. Okay, so it's Illustrator. Okay.
Yes, Illustrator.
Okay. Any other question?
All right, I have two more. I don't know how much time we get, Pablo. I have two more that I compiled. One is a technical one about any best practices or tips on using background images. And then the other is just how do you find time to do all the beautiful Tableau Public work on top of, I'm sure you're doing other things for someone else that can't put on public. So
background images very tricky, because every time you upload your visualization onto Tableau Public, Tableau has to render those images, right? And basically, the heavier the images, or the slower the dashboard of the visualization to run on Tableau Public. So things that I strongly suggest, do not create visualizations. It's not a rule, it's just a suggestion, honestly. Visualizations wider than 1,000 or 1,200 pixels, wider than that. Don't go over 1,200 pixels wide. And the main reason for that is not every single monitor or laptop or a tablet can cope with that. And once you go into a smartphone or something like that, your visualization gets completely different. So don't go any wider than that. And when you build the background image, make sure you are not on an an image, make sure your image quality is 72. Two things you have to make sure: 72 pixels, your quality image. So that's the density per square inch of dots that you're going to have on your image. So 72 is very light, super good for websites or HTML. If you go over 150, for example, or 300 pixels, what's going to happen is those are 300 pixels is perfect for printing, but not as good for HTML. So it's going to take longer and it's going to be heavier for Tableau to render that image. And last, and another thing is one day Tableau will allow us to use SVG files, which are perfectly fine and they can render in any size without a problem. But until that moment, I suggest you use JPEG rather than PNG. PNGs are good, but JPEGs are better and lighter for background images. And the other question, how do I find time? Well, I don't, honestly, I don't find time anymore.
That's a lie, you do.
No, I don't. If you look at my Tableau Public profile in the last year, in the last 12 months, I have published probably about 4 visualizations only. So that means I have done only 1 every quarter, which is not good for my rate. I used to do like 1 or 2 every week, and now I'm going every 3 months. And the truth is, as we go along, life, work, families, COVID, everything that happened in the last 2 years, I'm not publishing as much as I would like to. But when I was doing that, when I was working on that, it was always at breaks that I had doing work, or while I was commuting sometimes, right, on tube and on the underground, the metro, I don't know how, subway as you call it over there, train or something, things like that, airplanes, you will see me creating something, that kind of stuff. You have to find a way. It's actually the best way to actually learn, finding the time and the way to do it.
There was a question, and I think this was from Katie or somebody else, I'm not sure. And this is a very good question. It's like, how do you come up to what you want to create? Even if it was those 4 that you say you did, how do you think it's like, is you just in a moment and you're like, nah, I should create this, or I want to create this or that, right? It's something like that. Like, how do you figure out, like, where do you get that inspiration that you say, I want to create this, or I want to create that, or like, this makes sense to maybe do a visualization?
So as you start visualizing, as you start building, as you start creating your visualizations, you find your voice, as I say, right? So it's a way that of creating visualization, the visualizing, that it's kind of unique. You might be doing the same bar charts as anyone else, but when you see a visualization, you know it's from that specific person, for example, because that means that you have found your voice. That means that most of the visualizations you're going to be doing, they have something in common, right? And that's one of the things. So when you find that voice, when you find what you want to do, you have an inner voice that actually tells you, you know what, this is going to work well, and this is in line to what you've been doing before, and this is not what you've been doing before. So, for example, in this case, there's absolutely nothing wrong with these 2 mockups, right? Colors are fantastic. They work really well. As you can see, the colors are not different in the map between the 2 of them. Backgrounds slightly different, right? But they actually work really well. They could have been really, really good visualizations without a problem, right? And we have the third option, which is slightly kind of more beige, brownish sort of a idea. But when I found this one, when I used that background, that I heard to myself saying, that's the one, that's the killer, right? And you forget about everything else you have done, and you make that one work, even if you have to change colors, but you make that one work because you found it. It's simple as that, right? I mean, you had that call and someone said, and someone can show you 4 or 5 different mockups. You go to Canva and you can find different mockups of the same subject, and you say, that's the one, and you go for it.
Very nice. Very nice. This looks Harry Potter. Like very, looks very good. I think, Katie, you have 2 more questions.
I know, I feel bad. I'm glad you're drinking water because I'm like, you have to be so parched. We made you talk for so long.
No, please go ahead.
And I know it's your evening, so I want to let you go, but we have 2 ones and then we'll call it.
Shoot.
Okay, first one, dashboards should be no more than 1200 pixels wide. What about height and length, or height, length, same thing?
Oh, height, well, just go crazy. Go bananas.
Camille, you have full permission.
Yeah, go bananas. Go bananas. Listen, I mean, when we grab a phone, what's the first thing we do when we grab a phone? We use
We just go like this,
start
right?
scrolling down, right? So it's a natural thing that we do nowadays. We don't do this to the sides. We do this up and down.
Now,
So if you want to do, I mean, I have visualizations that are 1,000 pixels wide and about 3,500 tall, for example.
so
Because
that's
people
fine.
will
Okay.
Go down. The thing you had to bear in mind is that on every single visualization, what you put on top, the title and the first few things that people will see on your visualization when they open it on Tableau Public, that's what's going to engage them. So you have 5 seconds, 10 seconds for them to say, oh, this is interesting. Let me see a little bit more. And that's when they're going to scroll down. So you have to be very strategic, very, very intelligent on what you put at the top of your long visualization.
Excellent.
And by the way, it doesn't mean, I mean, I suggest 1,200, but by all means, if you want to go crazy and do 3,000 by 3,000, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, just nothing, there's nothing to stop you doing that.
Alrighty, William will give you the last question. So he asked, the layout of the Game of Thrones characters, is that Adobe Illustrator also?
Yes, it's all Adobe Illustrator. I think it's in here. It's a little bit further down in the presentation here. Yes. So then again, I don't remember the name of this character, honestly, but I didn't want, I mean, that I remember that week. And if you go back on 2019 Makeup on Monday, you will see that many people use the photos, the normal pictures, and I personally didn't want to use the pictures. So what I did is, when I say we is because sometimes I brainstorm with other people, and that's why I keep saying we. What I did is basically I just go and I remove the whole background, and on top of that, I started drawing. I actually have a digital pen that I connect to my laptop.
Okay.
With Adobe Illustrator, you can fix the image in the background, and you add another layer, and basically you start drawing it. You can also do the same thing with Procreate. If you have an iPad, for example, Procreate is a very, very good application as well. And if you have an iPad and a pencil, an Apple Pen, you can actually do exactly the same thing. As you can see, this is basically just a drawing of the face of this lady on top of an image that was already there. It's not perfect. As you can see, the shoulders are not right there, but it just gives you an idea of what's going to look like when it's finished. And then I added another set of elements, for example, and all that. The map is the same. The map is just it's very simple to actually draw with a pen on Illustrator, and then because these are all lines that you can actually move, and polygons, and you can actually reshape them if you did something wrong. So it's not difficult.
So Pablo, in this one for the lady, you actually did it with your pen, right? And you draw it in your, okay, that's what I'm, okay.
Yes. And as you can see, it's actually showing you, I did it, and basically then it's actually showing you how you build that, you create the second, the other half, then you add the neck, for example, and part of the clothes, the eyes, the nose, and it's not perfect, but it gives you a very good representation of who that person is. And whoever saw the TV series, they will actually identify her without a problem, without a problem at all. Mhm. And that's something you can do with any picture. You just grab any picture, right? You can find, or any a picture of yourself as well, and you just start creating that contour, for example, that idea of how to do it. Mhm.
Very cool. I
One more
love it.
question.
Any other, Katie, or?
Well, they just asked if the shield was drawn freehand, but
Yes, yes.
I
No,
thought we were-
no,
I thought we were-
that shield is not freehand. That shield is actually, I have to ask my friend, who's a crazy fan of Game of Thrones, is that where can I find the shields? Because I have no idea. And to be fair, he actually helped me building them, because I was actually looking at the data set I was doing. So the shield and the map was built by him. He's a graphic designer. He's awesome. He's a really good friend of mine. I said, look, I need your help on this. Can you give me a hand? And he actually draw both the shield, the coat of arms, and the map.
Very
himself.
cool.
Awesome.
Yes, I had a little bit
Okay.
of help on that one, on those two.
Have you, that's one question from me, and this is it. Have you ever used the Figma? We heard that a lot of people are in the community using Figma.
Yep.
Now, I have not used it, but I just wanted to ask you.
I haven't used it either, but it's a combination of what I suggested, Canva and Illustrator. And in
Very
fact, you can actually start building on Figma and then go to Illustrator, make changes to your illustration or your elements, and then send them back to Figma. So it interacts really well between
Wow.
the two of them. It's super powerful. I haven't used it myself, but I know, and I have seen some videos on YouTube how they do it, and it's very, very powerful. Yes.
Very cool. No, I think that was it. Just wanted to say thank you so much, Pablo. We went over a lot, but I know a lot of people here still here, and they will love this presentation. I mean, I think it's fantastic. I wanted to ask everybody that is in the chat still. There is a way we can submit this Tableau User Group content to Tableau to be nominated. I personally myself want to nominate this one. There is a link, I need to find it, but where you can say, hey, look, let's nominate this as the best presentation of this month. And I'm going to do that personally, just trying, so everybody can do it yourself too. And then when they list all of those user group for the month, hopefully we can be that first one.
Right there at the top. Thank you.
Yeah, right at the top. Correct.
Thank you
Correct.
so much for being here and all this time, and for the opportunity to join you on this February Tableau User Group. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
so much.
Pablo. It was fabulous.